Welcome to our Scissor Wedge mini course. The Scissor Wedge is a pretty mighty back exposure and back attacking tool which works pretty consistently at the highest level. A couple of good examples working out at the highest level would be Gordon Ryan against Felipe Pena in their first match, where Felipe manages to take Gordon's back with a Scissor Wedge variation. A little more recent one is Craig Jones getting his back taken against Kane Duarte and getting choked, so the DDS guys are not off well right now, but taking those guys back is a pretty big feat in my book. And the most recent one I can remember is Roberto Jimenez against Dante Leon, where Roberto manages to take Dante's back with a Scissor Wedge variation. So it shows you that it works pretty consistently at the highest level, and you should definitely take a look into it. What we're going to do today is giving you an overview about the system. So we're not going to go into technical applications and instructions, but rather just giving you an overview about every step and how it stacks up. So chronically, the first step is always the entry. I need to find my way into the Scissor Wedge itself. Then we have different kinds of orientations. So in which position are we in relation to the floor? The third one would be the mechanics behind the Scissor Wedge itself. We have a couple of different variations we can use, but we need to know the mechanics. And the last step is pummeling into back control. So I need to be able to take the back off the Scissor Wedge. We have different kinds of ways to do that. We could go for a regular back control or a crossbody right, for example. So we have a couple of options there. I'm gonna start showing you the orientations first, then we're gonna talk a little bit about the different mechanics, show you just how the mechanics stack up and how we're gonna pummel into the back control itself. And after that, we're gonna give one example of an entry, because there are countless entries, and we're just gonna show you one as an example. So if Philip starts in turtle, my first orientation would be the kneeling Scissor Wedge, because my opponent and myself are kneeling. This I have one leg up, but we're still in kneeling position, so it's the kneeling Scissor Wedge. If Philip falls to his hip, we're gonna enter into the top side Scissor Wedge, because I'm in top side control-ish configuration. This would be the second orientation we have. Rather than being on my knees, I'm in a side control top side position. So now we're going to scoot over a little bit. If I roll through from here, I'm going to enter the next orientation, which will be the bottom side Scissor Wedge. So I roll through and I'm on the bottom side now. I'm under his hip, controlling his hip. The fourth one would be the seated variation. So if I sit up from here, I have the seated Scissor Wedge. Okay. The last orientation, we need to loosen up the position a little bit because the entry is a little bit different, but will be the inverted Scissor Wedge. It's a berimbolo kind of position. So if we scoop around a little bit and Philip just rolls through over his shoulder and just pulls guard for a second, you see I'm in a De La Riva kind of situation, and from here I can roll through and get into an inverted Scissor Wedge position, which is pretty similar to a berimbolo kind of situation. But since I'm inverted, that's what the position is called. From here I can switch to other kinds of orientations. For example, we're gonna switch back to the bottom side Scissor Wedge, for example. So those are the main orientations we have. There are some slight variations to all of them, but those are the main ones you're going to use and you're going to see. And from there on, we need to be able to use the Scissor Wedge mechanic properly. So we have a couple of different mechanics. We have three main ones, which would be the reaping Scissor Wedge, the regular Scissor Wedge, and the stomping Scissor Wedge. And everyone has pros and cons. You're going to use them in different situations depending on what you want to achieve and how you're going to enter into the position. So if turtles again, the first one would be the reaping scissor wedge. So reaping, because I'm reaping his foot out, which internally rotates his hip, which points the knee inwards, just like a reap. Hence the name reaping scissor wedge. So if I start reaping over here and point my knees to the sky and have a good bite on the ankle, this is called the reaping scissor wedge. Now I'm going to change the angle a little bit and come above the knee, which would be the regular scissor wedge, which controls his hip angle and his hip height. The last one we're going to talk about is the stomping scissor wedge. Just adjusting my foot position so not the back of my hamstring is behind this knee, but rather my foot is behind this knee. And it just pretty much does the same thing as the regular scissor wedge. So those are the mechanics behind the scissor wedge, or ways to hold the position. Now we need to know how to pummel into back control. From this kind of scissor wedge, we have a good opportunity to pummel into a cross body right. Just getting a crotch lock, for example, and using this to pummel my twisted hook. From here, I could control the cross body right, for example. If I switch back a little and enter into the regular one, I could use this to just extend and get upper body grips and fight myself into position and get a more regular back control. So from there, I have different kinds of options to pummel into back control positions. Those are the two examples of doing so. The last thing we're going to talk about is chronically the first one, which is the entry. As I said before, there are countless entries. We have pretty strong entries, especially from leg entanglements. That's why we're going to show one example of a leg entanglement, or me countering a leg entanglement, entering into the scissor wedge. So if I'm standing and Philip manages to get a reap, which he would never do, but you get what I mean. So I'm just going to strip, extract my knee, and from here I can enter into the scissor wedge. And just as before, I could use this to pummel into back control, right? So just be aware that Philip just let me work a little bit to get my seatbelt and everything. This will not be as easy. You need to fight for that because your partner is not stupid. And he's doing the right thing. And if he's hand fighting, it's a little bit more work. But you can see where it goes, which is the most important thing for now. So this is the overview about the scissor wedge system. And now we're going to dive deeper into the technical applications of it.